Hello again. This is Dr. Dami Kabiawu, and today I'm going to be creating calculators in Excel. Calculators are just reusable Excel worksheets. They've been set up so that they can do certain calculations over and over and over again. Now, calculators can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. And today I'm going to start with a simple calculator that we can then build on in the future. So for this exercise, I'm going to be building a future value financial calculator. To be clear, the calculator that you build is irrelevant, right? A calculator takes a formula and then converts it into something reusable. For us, I'm going to do the future value calculator and then use that as an example for you. The first step to building an effective calculator is to figure out what your formula will be. So for me, if I click in anywhere in my Excel workbook right here, and I go into formulas, actually, let's use the formula wizard to look at this. So instead of clicking formulas, I could have done financial and then look for a future value calculator. It's called FV. Instead of that, I'll click in the f of x function and then I will search for FV. Press enter. That is the one I want. Now I know that's the one I want because I have done past research on it. The FV calculator takes 5 inputs. 3 of those inputs are necessary. The other 2 are optional. It needs a rate of return. It needs a number of period. It needs payments. It needs the present value and the future value. So 5 arguments. And then we can calculate the final values. So I'm going to cancel this for now. I'm going to set up the spreadsheet. Once you've figured out the formula you want to use, the second step in that process is to design your calculator. This is a simple one. So for this situation, I'm going to have up here my inputs. I'm going to have labels for my inputs, just like the formula needs. I'm going to need rate. I'm going to need periods. Forgive my writing, my pen's not working 100%. I'm going to need payment and a few other values. So my 5 inputs are going to be here, labels for the inputs. And then I'm going to take the cell next to it, and that's where I'm going to allow people to put their values in. For this simple calculator, at the bottom, I'm going to have the calculation. I'm going to label that future value so everybody knows that it's the future value calculator. And in the cell next to it, I'm going to have all the calculations. There isn't that much of a calculation. It's just the future value formula. And the future value formula will point to the individual cells for all of its inputs. So it needs 5 inputs. First one, second one, third one, fourth one, and fifth one. We know the first one is rate. So it's going to be a reference to this cell here. And then the second one would be for here, and the third one, and so on and so forth. So I know what my calculator is going to look like. I'm going to erase everything. And then now we're going to build the actual calculator. So this is taking me a minute. This is probably a bad idea. Next time, instead of erasing, I'll just create a new sheet and start all over again, right? But hey, it is what it is at this point. So for my calculator, I need 5 inputs. I'm going to set the inputs up. The first input is going to be for rate. The second input is going to be NPER, and NPER in the calculator stands for periods, right? Number of periods. So I'm going to make that number of periods, NPER. Now, just for fun, right, we could add additional information to here. The rate should be in percent. Number of periods stands for NPER, so I'm going to put that in the brackets. After NPER, we have payments. And that's an input for if you have periodic payments. To be honest, I'm not going to explain what the calculator does, just how to build it. Payment is PMT. The next input we need for a future value calculator is the present value. And that is the argument called PV. And finally, what we need to complete this is type. Type is 0 or 1, right? So 0 or 1. 0 is the default. So present value and type are optional variables, and 0 is the default. So we're going to have the rates in here. We're going to have number of periods in here and the rest. I like to format my input cells as yellow. That's just an artifact of habit for me. If I format it as yellow, anyone using a workbook that I've created knows that that's where they're supposed to put values in. So I'm going to put 10% for rate, just so I can test the calculator. 5 years for number of periods. My payment amount is 0. Future present value is going to be 1,000. You have to have numbers in the payment or the present value formula for this to work. If you're calculating the future value of an amount, you have to have an amount that you can calculate future value with. And type is 0. Now I'm putting in all of these things just to ensure that my calculator works when I build it. So now future value, that will be equals FV. I know that, but instead of doing that, let's go use the wizard. FV, click on the FV, open it, rate. Rate will come from this cell. My number of periods will come from that cell. My payment will come from this cell. My present value will come from this cell. My type will come from this cell. And that's the calculator done. It already tells me that the future value of this amount is 1610.51, right? Now, Excel renders your number, it renders the output as negative if your input amount is positive. And if your input amount is negative, then your output will be positive. It'll just do the opposite. Individuals, we don't really like having negative numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, and then go into the calculation and just stick a minus in front of it. That turns the output of my calculations positive, just so that I don't have a negative calculation. And that is the future value formula. Now let's print out that formula. It's not necessary, but Excel has a formula called formula text that allows you to display the contents of a formula of another cell if that cell contains a formula. So if you put a formula in Excel, Excel works out the formula and gives you the answer. And the formula text just helps you print out the formula that underlines that number that you can see. So that's the only formula I have. If you use a formula text for a cell that has no formula, it'll just say not applicable. My formula here, I'm going to make it gray because I don't want it to stand out as much as the rest of the information. It's just incidental to the information on the page. It's not necessary. But I put it on my formula sheets so that I can catch where formulas exist on my sheet. Press that. Make it italics, make it a little bit smaller. Take the future value and add some color to it. I typically use that color for my outputs, and then add some borders around it. Looks good. Now we're going to give it a header. There's no point having a calculator if it doesn't have a header. So let's insert. I'm going to merge the cells up here by selecting both and clicking merge and center. And I'm going to call it future value calculator. Now let's give that background color. I'm going to give it, I wonder if I should, what color I should call it. What goes with yellow and orange? Would green work? Yeah, let's do green then. And that's it. And right here, I'm going to add some information here. right? To make sure people know that that's the input cell. So I'm going to merge it. I am going to type that, right? That's what it is. Now I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to make it larger. Basically as large as it can go. I think 72 is the largest font. So that kind of tells me, right? That kind of tells me that these are my input cells. I'm going to merge it. I'm going to merge that and add some labels to it as well. Merge. Let's call it input cells. That's a little information for too much space. So I'm going to change the orientation. Let's make it a input cells. Let's make it that. Same thing. I'm going to center it. Make this cell smaller. Those are my input cells. And then I'm going to merge this and label it output. Merge and call this output cells. Okay. Slash output slash calculations. Okay, so let's make that an even lighter shade of green, like a barely there shade of green. I'm going to go to more colors. Let's see if I can get really, really light shade of green. Or something else I can leave with. I think that might work, right? So let's select that color and do OK. So that's like an olive green. So that works. That's good enough. And that's the calculator. If I wanted to add some more drama to it, I might put a border around it, right? Let's insert a space up here, add borders around the whole calculator, thick borders. Okay. And then we can go to view and switch off the grid lines. And there you go. You've got your calculator, you've got your input and your output, and everything looks a little lovely, and you can use that for your future calculation, value calculators. Now, the next thing I want to do is complicate issues a little bit more, right? What if I wanted to add intermediate calculations to here beyond what we have for the sheet? So let me go on to another sheet and do more work on future value calculator. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the future value formula because I know a little bit more about it. If you didn't know enough about it, then you'd have to kind of think it through. You have to learn about the formula, but I know a little bit more about it. The future value formula allows me to take a value today and add some interest to it to project what it will be in the future. Now, the first calculation or formula I did is adequate. It takes all the arguments for the formula and turns them into input cells, and it will work. But what if I wanted to do some interim calculations? So, for example, the future value formula here needs rate. It needs NPER. It needs payment. It needs present value, and it needs type. Usually you would either have input in the payment or the present value. Sometimes you'd have it in both, but usually it's one or the other. Doesn't matter for our sake. Now, the future value calculator can be used to calculate annual payments, biannual payments, semi-annual payments, monthly payments, daily payments, weekly payments. There's certain things that change. If we have an annual rate, we can convert it to a weekly rate by doing some calculations to it. If we have a N per number of years and payments per year. We can convert that into monthly if we have payment. We can convert annual payments to monthly payments, and if we have the present value and type, we can complete the calculations. So let's go in here. I'm going to rename this sheet Simple Future Value Calculator. And then we're going to build the more complicated one. New sheet, rename. And I'm going to call that future. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the sheet I don't want. So I'm going to delete this sheet. Thank you very much. Take this new one, rename it, and just call that future value calculator. For this calculator, I'm going to take the input. I'm going to take more input than the formula needs. And then I'm going to do some interim calculation to arrive at the final answer. So let's start the input section again. Now we're going to ask for an annual rate. We're going to ask for the number of years. We're going to ask for the number of payments per year. We are also going to ask for annual payments. We are going to ask for type. Once all of this information is given, I think I'm missing one thing, right? Present value and type. Now, once all of these things are given, I'm going to do some interim calculations. And I know that I'm going to need to calculate period rate. I'm going to need to calculate number of periods. I'm also going to need to calculate period payment. And then finally, I'm going to do the final calculations or output/calculations. And get the future value out of it. For our purpose, right, the period rate is our rate percent. And that's the one that is needed for the formula. Our number of periods is the N per, and that's also needed by the formula. But I'll do some calculations before we get there. The period payment or payment per period is our PMT. And the rest stay the same, right? This is present value. And this here is 0 or 1. So now that we've got all of that done, I'm going to label all of these as inputs because these are the information that I'm going to require my users to give me so I can get some work done. Again, we're going to put some borders around it for consistency. Right here are my period calculations. I'm not going to give it any color, but I'm going to put a border around it for consistency. And for the output, I'm going to give it borders, and I'm also going to give it color. So that's that. With all of these done, I'm going to put values in, the same as we had the last time, right? 10%. Number of years will be 5. For the first one, we had 1 payment per year. We reserved the right to have more payments. For annual payments, I had 0, and for future value, I had 1,000. So there you go, 1,000, and type is going to be 0. Now my interim calculations is going to take the rate and figure it out given an annual rate and the number of payments per year. So if you have one payment per year, then the rate is going to be 10%. If you have 12 payments per year, the rate is going to be 10 divided by 12, because that's what you would pay in interest every single month. So here I've got period rate, and I'm going to divide it by 1. That gives me 10% because it is per period. And let's format that as a percentage, by the way. So that's my first interim calculation. So if I had 2 payments per year, semi-annual interest, then it'll be 5% per semi-annual period. So 5% per half year, right? That's the intention of that calculation. So I'm going to set that back to 1. Now, number of periods per year is just going to be, number of periods total is going to be the number of years times period per year. Again, if you have semi-annual periods, it'll be 2 periods per year times 5 years. That gives us 10 periods in total. So that's what the calculation is. And then if I had payment, it'll be the same thing. I'm going to take the payment amount and then divide that out by the number of periods. So if I'm paying $100 per year, per half year it'll be $50, and so on and so forth. In this case, I have 0 payments, but I still have to put the formula in so that we see when it works. Again, I'm going to use the future value wizard to fill this in. I've used future value before. The rate is here. I'm going to use this rate, not the input, because the input has additional calculations on it before it's usable. The number of periods, I'm going to use this one down here, my interim calculation. The payment per period, I'm going to use the one from my interim calculation as well. For present value, I'm going to use the one from the input, and for type, I'm going to use the input as well. Now let's do OK, and that's the calculation. Now I know it works, right? Because the answer I got here and the answer I got before were the same. And seeing as I'm doing the same calculation, it should work. If I change any of the inputs, then the numbers will be different. Like I did the last time, I'm going to put a minus in front of this formula to make it work, and we are done. Now with that, I'm going to print out the formula using the equals formula text thing. I want the formulas from this cell. Now I'm going to take that formula and copy it all the way down. The second one prints the formula from this cell. The third one does for that cell. There is no formula in the adjacent cell, so that's not going to work, and I'm going to delete those two. I tend to take my formulas and copy it all the way down and then delete the bunch I don't want instead of doing it individually. So now I've got all of my formulas, and like I did before, I'm going to make those formulas gray. I'm going to make it italics, and I'm going to reduce the size of it. So there we have the changes. Now again with this, I'm going to merge and center it. I'm going to take that. I'm going to merge and center it. I'm going to insert some space in here and do insert. I'm going to merge and center this, and I'm going to call it future value calculator as well. I'm going to try and recreate the same order that I did before. Interim calculations, I tend to leave them white because I don't want to call any attention to them. They're irrelevant to what's on the ground. So I tend to leave them white with no background color or anything at all. So here I'm going to make this green. I'm going to make the output olive like we did before. I'm going to merge this and add the bracket sign so that I can use it for inputs. Let's make that larger, as large as it will go. I think again 72 is the largest it will go. Let's do that, close some of the brackets. Let's label it so people know that that's the input. Again, merge and center and input. Let's make this bold. Let's change the orientation for it. And then let's maybe, center it. That's a little bit better. And we might make it larger as well, just a little bit. Okay, so that's my input cell. This is everything else. And as we did before, I'm going to put thick borders around this, and then I'm going to switch off the grid lines. Okay, so that's the calculator. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here is I could do some more formatting, but I won't. I'm going to leave that to your thoughts and your discretion. Do what you please. But you should know now, right? If I change this to 2, then the future value is slightly larger because the more periods per year interest is earned, the quicker the amount grows. If I change this to 12, then it's going to be a little under 1% per month. So let's go back home, add a few zeros to that interim calculation so you can see it. So if interest rate is 10% per year and the number of payments per year is 12, then you are going to be earning or paying 0.83% per month. The number of periods is 5 times 12, 5 years times 12 periods per year, 60. Period payment, if you had any payments, that would be different. And then those are your calculations, and we're done. So that's the future value calculator, and that's the simple future value calculator. So I hope this helps when you're trying to create one for yourself. Have a lovely rest of your day.